your work with the Jets, the type of things, not just physical things that you're showing them, but the mental things that you're showing them.
Most of the work's been
and
done.
it's helping them because they're about to.
I think they're helping themselves, and I think
you know.
Eric Mancini is the one that's doing most of it, obviously. But for the last 3 years, when Mancini first got there, he's a boxing fan, and Mike Tannenbaum, the general manager, reached out for Mancini and got in touch with me and asked if I would talk to the team. Excuse me, I talked to Mancini and he about my philosophy of how people handle themselves under pressure and the choices they make and why they make them and why they don't, and how you can better yourself in that dimension. Parallels of boxing and football, as far as the most difficult, places being the places in the mind, and not just the physical places. And you can't use your physical ability if the mental part isn't understood as well as you can, and as in depth as possible. And so what we started doing was I talked to the team 3 years ago. I would talk to them about these journeys into these sort of shadowy places that we go when we're under pressure.
Yes, indeed.
I would talk to the players about going into these gray rooms. And they liked it. They responded to it. I mean, the guys used to, Leon Washington, all the guys, like they told me afterwards. I remember one day Mancini told me that they were scrimmaging like a day after I talked to them, and they were up on the line, and a couple guys all of a sudden in practice said, "Hey, you going into that gray room? You better get out of there." So they're using it in their own way. But I use analogies that again are parallels from both our sports, and I talk about a knockout. I talk about very few knockouts. Knockout in the parallel in football would be just giving in or being defeated or allowing yourself to be defeated.
Right.
And so I use that, I use that as an example. And I said there's very few legitimate, pure knockouts in boxing, where a guy gets hit a blind punch, he doesn't see it, he has no time to register it in his mind, no time physically to defend, and he gets hit a blind punch, like walking into a dark room and someone's behind the door. Yeah. They hit you. And you wake up if you wake up. And that's it. You don't know how you got there. I said there's very few of those. Most knockouts come in almost a form, I hate to say this, but of submission. And very pure knock. So I was talking about the same thing in football, and I was just saying that, that a knockout is kind of like you get buzzed, you get hit, and you have a physical reaction, and there's a hallway, and it's to your right. And you're in a bright place. We're in a pretty bright place here. And then all of a sudden you start going down this corridor, and it's a little gray. But then you take a peek down the end of the hall, and there's a dark room. And you're on your way there. And at some point, you realize that if you continue going down this gray hallway, you are going to that dark room. And it's a knockout. And so you have an opportunity to stop that journey.
In reverse.
Yeah, you do. You have an opportunity to say, no, I'm not going into that room. Or you just continue to drift down there and say that I have no control. And the biggest secret, the biggest thing that I can show them as far as magic is it's not going to some mountain where you find like an herb planted somewhere and you digest it. That's not the magic. The magic is obviously that you realize that you have that choice.
Yes.
You have that ability to say, no, I'm going to right this ship, and I'm going to demand that I come back into this lit room. And, those kind of things. So that kind of progressed into where the following year, Mancini and Tannenbaum asked me, can you give them physical boxing lessons? So during the training period of the season, I started giving them boxing lessons to improve their hand speed, their footwork, their obviously their balance, their agility, and that kind of stuff, and use those training sessions again to kind of promote the need for being aware under pressure situations of what you control. Put them under pressure, threatening positions, just like they are on the field, and promote to them and explain to them how they can control themselves better in those places. Like a quarterback, having to be in the pocket. I used to work with Pennington a lot, and how I would throw punches at him and slip the punches and stay calm enough not to slip too far, but just enough to make the punch miss.
Right.
And that means you stay in control, and then you're able to come back and have some control and some say over what you can do. If you go too far, it takes you too long to come back with a counter.
Right.
Yeah, or you're too far over and the guy gets two punches off. And when you step out, how far do you step out? You step back to make a miss just enough to make a miss. Not make a miss by this much, but make a miss by this much. Now you step out just enough to be out of danger, and then you can come back and you can control the situation. If you go out too far, you're out of control. And you know, those exercises, those drills, those physical, tangible drills, allow them to find themselves getting a little bit more in control of themselves in those mental places and understanding those mental places. Even something less subtle and more deeper, like sometimes a guy would jump off sides, one of these big 300-pound linemen. And I question to them that maybe they subconsciously let themselves jump off sides. I don't think you forgot to count. You just left that huddle, what, 8 yards away? You forgot to count already? I don't think so. Maybe it was easier during that moment that we're drifting into that dark room that rather than face the 300-pound guy and face him where you got to block him and you got to contain him, where maybe you fail at that. Maybe if you jump off sides, even though some people say, well, you did fail, you jumped off sides. No, but you never failed in the contest. You never got to the contest. So maybe that was a way of avoiding that moment.
Right. And it's the same with taking a knee.
Yeah.
You know, so
same
thing.
thing.
A knee, you know?
Yeah, or even worse than taking a knee, maybe just not throwing punches back where you privately know the referee's going to stop it. You know that's his job.
Right.
So then afterwards you act like you're upset, but you know that that's your way of submitting without putting a white flag up where the whole world knows what you did.